Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates of finance. Questions will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Going back to questions that we had left off, I believe it was last week, regarding the minister's meeting with the 3 credit rating agencies. So to confirm, the minister did meet with S&P, DBRS, and Moody's. Can the minister please tell us what the reaction was from those 3 credit rating agencies in terms of Manitoba's current debt and borrowing situation, seeing as how Manitoba is currently one of the more indebted provinces in the country? What did they say about Manitoba's current debt profile and deficit situation?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good to be back here. Thanks to the critic for the question. So I can confirm, as I did in our last meeting here at this committee, that we did get to meet with S&P, DBRS, and Moody's. We actually met with them all on our first day on our trip out east, where we met with both credit rating agencies and investors. And those conversations were very positive for a number of reasons. And I'll speak just high level to one of the questions that was asked, just when it comes to borrowing. We have a very encouraging cash borrowing forecast as a province, especially when you compare us to some of the other provinces in Canada, in that we're very flat and straight. Whereas some other provinces have cash borrowing needs in future years that look a lot steeper. So the credit rating agencies, I think, really responded favorably to that. It shows that we're moving forward in a responsible manner, and that our plan is focused on, again, fiscal responsibility and delivering on that commitment we made to balance the budget. And I think those cash borrowing requirements show that. They are also, I think, very happy to see that we had done the work that I described during our last meeting here in committee to do multi-year planning and to really look at what our cost structure was, and really at a very deep level understand what our proposed expenses would be when it came to all major government decisions over the next many years, collective bargaining, really looking at all of those costs, and as well as understanding what the proposed costs were of the many commitments that we made to Manitobans, which we've been delivering on and which we're going to continue to deliver on. And I think for the credit rating agencies, it was very, very encouraging for them to see that our government had been doing that work and showing, I think, a responsible path forward while we invest in the important things that we committed to Manitobans we would invest in. I think the other thing that I believe the credit rating agencies responded favorably to was our debt to GDP ratio and projected debt to GDP ratio through the track, which shows a downward slope. And I think that speaks again to the approach that we're taking, and it's the kind of approach that I think they wanted to see. So our takeaways from those meetings were very positive. Of course, I can't in any way have any guarantees about the outcomes of those discussions, but there certainly was positive reactions in those discussions and no signals of any kind of action that would be concerning. We've seen in other provinces, after budgets have been released, credit rating agencies move pretty swiftly to respond to their concerns that they've seen. So I think it's overall very positive response, and I think really demonstrates and speaks to the good work that our government is doing to try to make sure that we balance the importance of investing in fixing healthcare, responding to the cuts that were made to health for many, many years that result in a lot of challenges for Manitobans, balancing the need to make investments in improving affordability with fiscal responsibility. And I think that we have just a great story to tell as a government and as a province right now because of the work that we've been doing. And that's work that I'm really proud of, and work that we've done, of course, not just with our team, but also we were very well supported by folks in our Treasury Board and finance teams and beyond. Now, we do, of course, continue to have a lot of work to do because we inherited a $2 billion deficit, a hole that we needed to dig out of. We are doing that work, and we're doing it every day. We've got, I think this year we've shown about a 1/3 cut to that $2 billion deficit we were left. We'll see where public accounts lands, but I think it's going to be somewhere in the 1.3 mark, which shows very good progress. And of course, this budget that we recently released shows more progress on that. We are in an era of uncertainty to the Trump tariffs, but we continue to, I think, show that we're very serious when it comes to finding that responsible balance of making investments that are needed with making sure we deliver on that balanced budget commitment we made to Manitobans in the last election, and one that I know, again, a commitment that the Premier really, really takes incredibly seriously and reminds us as a cabinet team that continues to be a top focus for our government. But we're, I think, finding that path forward, and the credit rating agencies, I think, responded favorably to the story we shared and the work we're doing.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you. So with a up to possibly $1.9 billion deficit, $2.3 billion in debt servicing costs, 7% increase in spending compared to previous year, and struggling real economic GDP growth, both last year at 1.1% and this year projected to be 1.7%, did any of the three credit rating agencies issue Manitoba caution?
The honourable member for Midland.
I will be ceding my chair to my colleague, the MLA for Le Rondre. I'll be back.
Thank you.
The honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. So in response to the question, as I shared in my previous answer, we can't presume what the credit rating agencies will do, but we can say that, again, there, I think, was a very favorable, positive response to the information we shared and a great discussion. And again, I think they were very content with the work that we're doing in terms of our multi-year planning and just I think the very forward-looking approach that we're taking to managing our province's finances. You know, in terms of some of the risks I think that they were concerned about, probably without question, they continue to be most interested in the impacts of tariffs and what we were, presuming those impacts might be. I'll remind the critic, these were, Trump tariffs. These were, to a certain extent, celebrated by the leader of the opposition. That there was a very strange set of comments made on a podcast where there was a celebration of a 25% tax on exports from Manitoba. That, of course, very few people in this province can understand where those comments were coming from. But again, in those meetings with these credit rating agencies, this was a concern of theirs. And we did share that, of course, as we've spoken to in the House and outside of the House, we do continue to be concerned about the impacts of tariffs on the provincial economy, especially, of course, for our steel producers, our agricultural producers. And we know how important it is that we support those sectors and all Manitoban businesses during this time, and that we do not celebrate the imposition of this tax on our exports to the U.S. That's, of course, something that works against the interests of Manitoban businesses, and again, is it's very confusing for Manitobans to know that the Leader of the Official Opposition celebrated those, or celebrated interference in our sovereignty, or however he went on to characterize that those words that he shared. Those conversations, I think, were also an exciting opportunity for us to talk about what we were doing overall in response to the challenge of the moment, this tariff challenge that Trump has created for Canada and our provinces. And we had, I think, really exciting news to share in those discussions. Of course, our recent budget focused on, first and foremost, a major capital plan, a $3.7 billion capital plan, to get a lot of important things built, a lot of economy supporting infrastructure built, trade supporting infrastructure built, including investments in things like Nupik to help make sure Winnipeg can continue to grow and thrive, investments in important trade supporting infrastructure like Centerport, which is a really a growing multimodal facility to the west of Winnipeg that we can all be really proud of. And I think that it sort of harkens back to the potential for Manitoba as what we were previously known as the gateway to the West. We have this unbelievable opportunity as a transportation and logistics hub to lean heavily into that history, into that past, and to once again become a bit of a place through which the stuff moves to the world. And Centerport is a great example of investments we're making to help offer opportunities for Manitoba businesses to diversify their trade, to find new destinations for their goods, including, we've helped to expand access to further trade opportunities through our investments in AGG and the Port of Churchill, which again is supporting Manitoba businesses to find new ways of getting their goods to market. So again, this was a very positive, I think, positively received, those investments. In addition, they were really happy to hear about the important work we're doing in laying foundational economy building strategies, like, for example, our affordable energy plan that will ensure that we have reliable, low-cost energy. They liked that we were doing it in the way that we've outlined, which is to partner with First Nations to have them deliver that wind and that new energy, and to do that in a way that focuses on economic reconciliation. And they also were very happy to hear about our critical mineral strategy, which I'm really proud to say was delivered by the Minister for BMTJC, who's joining us here today. Wonderful strategy that's going to help to unlock an incredible amount of exploration and mineral extraction opportunities to help build an even stronger economy in Manitoba. So again, a really wonderful story that we were able to share, positively received, and proud to be doing that important work of connecting and building those relationships with those credit rating agencies to help Manitoba's cost of borrowing remain as low as possible.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Thank you to the Minister again for having me here and taking some of the questions. I'll go in a bit of a different direction and allow the critic to circle back to the direction she was on. Contraband tobacco in the province is something that both finance and justice have been struggling to gain control of in recent years, and tobacco tax revenue is substantial for the province of Manitoba. So my question to the minister would be, how much lost revenue has his department seen as a result of contraband cigarettes finding their way into our province?
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. In discussion with the team, what I've come to understand here is that it's very, very challenging in any jurisdiction to understand the quantum. They don't know what they don't know. Of course, we know this is a challenging issue, that we continue to work towards reducing the instance of illegal tobacco in Manitoba, of course. But it is very difficult to get a total estimate. And this is, again, this is a challenge we need to continue to work towards reducing contraband tobacco in Manitoba, but we do not have an estimate on the total quantum there to offer here. I think in the way of good news, we are seeing an overall decline in people smoking in Manitoba. It's of course good from a public health perspective. That's perhaps reflected in our estimated tobacco revenues this year, which is estimated to decline by 2%. And so, as a Minister of Finance, on that side, I note that, and I would imagine that is tied to reductions in levels of smoking among Manitobans. In terms of work that we're doing to try to continue to grow the economy and grow GDP and grow revenues for the province, we're working to do that through growth of business. And I mentioned a bit about that in my former answer, but I had a chance to only speak to a few of those items that we're focused on right now, but great opportunity to talk a bit more about the work that we're doing to support GDP growth in Manitoba. So I spoke about the $3.7 billion capital plan. I spoke about the work that we're doing to invest in trade supporting infrastructure, which we know is very important and frankly has probably never been more important than now. Interprovincial trade barriers. I cannot express how excited I am about the announcement that the Premier made today and that we've made together with Ontario about the MOU on interprovincial trade between Manitoba and the biggest economy in Canada. I'm hoping that the members opposite are as excited as I am about that. I think that's something we can all celebrate. Looking forward to the critic talking about his excitement about that agreement when he gets his chance to follow up to my response here. But I mean, this is the work that we need to be doing. And it doesn't end with Ontario. More work to be done, but we're going to continue to move the ball forward when it comes to making it easier to move goods and people around the country. And what an incredible start for Manitoba that we've been able to announce that MOU today. So just so proud of that progress we're making, and a great sign, and I think surely a great signal for Manitobans that our government is focused on doing that work. And we know the promise of the reduction of those interprovincial trade barriers has been quantified as being as high as $200 billion net growth if we can work together as a country and as provinces to continue reducing those barriers. So that was just such an exciting thing today. Buy Canadian, of course, the critic will know that we brought forward Buy Canadian legislation, and proud of the work that we're doing to...
Order.
We can't talk about legislation currently before the
We can't talk about legislation currently before the House.
Okay, thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
I apologize, Chair. Thank you for flagging that issue. So very proud to be doing that important work of looking where we can take procurements and return those expenditures back to Canada and back to Manitoba. I spoke earlier about our energy plan and the work we're doing to again lay that sort of those building blocks for growing our economy. We had for many years a failure to develop new energy to support business growth in Manitoba. The critic probably knows this, but we developed a grand total of 0 megawatts over 7.5 years. That put us in a tough position, but we responded to that. And we're, again, keeping our eye on making sure that we have the energy we need to grow our economy and support our businesses. Investments in tourism. That's, we made a $4.5 million commitment in the last budget to help Tourism Manitoba, to bring more people to Manitoba, to spend their dollars in Manitoba businesses. And of course, to help more Manitobans or encourage more Manitobans to stay right here in our beautiful province, to spend their dollars here and support the success of Manitoba. Again, building on the work we're doing to grow our provincial GDP, awesome investments in NFI, Magellan, We've seen, of course, a new gold mine is opening in Manitoba. Got a new potash mine opening in Manitoba. The open for business sign is finally placed right on the front of the, that big provincial sign when you come into the province after many years of it not being placed up there, and we're proud to have done that to grow our GDP and improve our province.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And it's great that the Minister of Finance has given us this opportunity to thank the previous PC government for initiating the gold mine that has now been reintroduced or re-announced, not even introduced by the current NDP government, his government, and also to reiterate the exciting news of the previous PC government opening a potash mine, the first potash mine in Manitoba. Great initiatives taken by the previous government that now hopefully the current NDP government is going to be able to reap those rewards. I'll tie back to my previous question. I don't want to dwell on it. I just want to paint the picture for Manitobans from a financial perspective, what the potential loss in tax revenue is as a result of contraband tobacco in our province. I think all Manitobans can agree that we would like to see no one smoking anymore, eliminating that health risk that is a reality as a result of smoking. We also at the same time realize that there is a significant burden on our healthcare system for the effects of smoking. So we all can support a loss of revenue if that means that it's going to improve the state of health for Manitobans. What Manitobans are concerned about is the ever-growing presence of contraband tobacco that isn't providing tax revenue for our province, but still maintaining that burden on healthcare. So would the minister be able to tell us what the decrease in the last year, and I don't know how comfortable the minister would be to going back 2 years to paint the picture on the decrease that we've seen, as the minister stated in the previous question that the goal is a 2% reduction, or expectation is a 2% reduction in revenue as a result of less people smoking. But is that also conveyed in the reality of what tobacco tax revenue is? So would the minister be able to tell us the dollar value of tobacco tax revenue this year and what it was last year? This financial year that we're speaking to, the current budget, and then dating back one fiscal year.
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. So just to answer the question directly, we are estimating 98 million in tobacco revenue this year. And last year it was 100 million. Answer the question directly from the critic. And then, he did speak to the gold mine. So I do want to make sure we set the record straight here, and that the critic has the benefit of knowing what actually happened, if he doesn't already. So that gold mine under the last government was an act of fiction. It was not proceeding, and I could tell you that with confidence because I met with the CEO of Alamo and talked to him about the status of the mine and understood many of the challenges that they were facing with being able to proceed. There were some significant challenges with supply chain and ensuring that they could access some of the equipment needed to energize the mine, and we did an incredible amount of work to work closely with Manitoba Hydro to make sure that we could overcome those supply chain challenges. Our Minister for JTC also worked, moved mountains, I'll say, on regulations to move that forward. And of course, it's just an unbelievable credit to our Premier and the work he's doing that, he's got a team focused on, again, doing what's needed to make sure we move forward on resource extraction and creating great opportunities in Manitoba. So that's just a reality of how that went down, and I'm really proud to know that our team did that we worked closely in a very collaborative manner to make this happen. And so that addition of that mine, once it comes fully online, will move us from 3 operational mines to 4. And of course, with the potash mine coming online as well, we're going to be, in our government, within 2 years of having come into government, we'll have seen a significant expansion of resource extraction activities in Manitoba. And of course, why is that so exciting? Not only because of the job and opportunities it creates and the economic growth opportunities it creates, but it's also exciting that mineral extraction is happening in a jurisdiction where we know that the energy that's driving that is coming from clean energy sources, that we know we are in a jurisdiction that has fantastic labor laws. That means the workers working in those mines can do that in an incredibly safe manner. And this really speaks to our value advantage as a province, in that if you want to bring capital to Manitoba and invest in bringing resources out of the ground, you can do it in a way that will be the least carbon intensive, the safest for workers, and the most environmentally responsible manner possible. And I think we're seeing that excitement and that interest with, I think, an estimated 67 other mines that are currently in exploration phase. And my hope is we're going to see us unlock a huge amount of investment, and that we're going to see, again, those minerals come out of the ground in the most environmentally, climate, and labor-friendly way possible. So again, the idea that gold mine was being driven and advanced by the last government is an act of fiction, not too dissimilar from the act of fiction that was the former government's last budget that they brought forward, where we were left a $2 billion deficit hole. And when I say act of fiction, just to clarify for the members opposite, who I think are rightfully expressing concern about that number. For example, one act of fiction was the projection of a $550 million hydro net income. We know that is double, maybe almost 3 times hydro's typical net income. That was one of a number of things that they'd included in that budget that we know MNP characterized as constituting, quote, high budgetary risk. And we know what that high budgetary risk left us with, which was a very deep hole that Manitobans have been forced to climb out of. So again, that speaks to the former government's approach when it came to managing the books. I know that the critic wasn't here during that time, but that's the record of their party. That's the record that they left us with to work through. Then a significant challenge that we've had to overcome, but we're doing the work. And as I think the critic and members opposite can see, man, there's a lot of exciting things happening in our province right now. We are really, really moving forward when it comes to resource extraction, expanding trade corridors, expanding the amount of procurement that we're doing here in Canada, bringing those dollars home, and of course investing in capital infrastructure to keep growing our GDP in helping our economy to be as strong as possible during this challenging time.
The honorable member for Midland.
Thank you. Does the minister expect other own source revenues to go up or down this year? And can the minister explain what those revenue sources are?
The honorable minister of finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. So the question was about own source revenues, and I would turn the critic or encourage them to go to page 12 of our budget document, where there's a complete summary there with a full response to her question, and happy to answer any further specifics there if she's interested in leaning into that. But when it comes to fees and own source revenue, one of the things that we were so proud to do this year was to make parks free. So that was, I think, a very important measure right now, and Manitobans are, again, feeling both the affordability pinch due to their ongoing affordability challenges, and we know Manitobans across the province continue to need better support when it comes to making life more affordable. And that change when it came to park fees, I think, has been widely welcomed. And I think, especially during this time when we're seeing Manitobans wanting to spend their dollars here in our province and in Canada, it's a really great opportunity for them to do that and save money while they're at it. And of course, that builds on the investments in tourism that we made in this recent budget. I spoke to that a bit earlier, the $4.5 million that we're adding to Tourism Manitoba. We know that the Trump tariff tax that the member opposite's leader is supportive of has really angered frustrated Canadians. They're, I think, really motivated like never before to want to invest and spend their money here in Canada. They're certainly not thankful for the tariffs that are being applied to our country and to Manitoban businesses. And I think that's resulting in them wanting to spend more time in our beautiful province. And the elimination of those park fees is, I think, a great thing that we've done to help support them to do exactly that. Yep.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, if the minister could please speak to how many audits the taxation division has done in the past year and how many the minister expects will be done in this fiscal year.
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I can share the number of audits were roughly similar in 23-24, and in 24-25. So in 23-24, we had 727, and then in 24-25, 740. But you know, there's also, of course, an audited financial statement that we all we're very concerned about, which was the final audited financial statements for the 23-24 fiscal year, where we learned that we were left with this, again, this huge deficit. And I didn't get a chance to read this earlier, so I thought I would just take an opportunity to do that. This is an executive summary from the MNP. It was called the Post-Election Financial Accountability Review. And here's a quote from the executive summary. From the release of the 23-24 budget to October 3rd, 2023, budgetary decisions were made that collectively represent high budgetary risk. And then it goes on to say the report concluded it was, quote, reasonable to expect the government to have understood that all the unique circumstances that led to significantly higher revenues in 22-23 would not likely repeat in immediately subsequent years, end quote. And then just going on, the review also found, an open quote, the decision to aggressively budget for an above average net income from Manitoba Hydro and then fail to adjust for the significant downside risk to Hydro's net income in the first quarter update led to additional fiscal pressure later in the year. You know, that in addition to the, I think it was 1.4 billion of capital investment announcements after the budget was released, in addition to a number of other concerning decisions that were made, left us again in a very challenging position, and I think frankly spoke to a lack of transparency and accountability we saw from the last government. Again, I think one of the most concerning things for Manitobans when we talk about what happened there was the fact that the government seemed to have gone out of their way to hide what was happening when they reported their Q1 report on July 28th before the election. And thinking back to that date, you know, we were well into the summer hydrology season. It would have been very clear at that point that Hydro's net income was not going to be anywhere close to what the government had projected. And yet, we went into that Q1 report and Manitobans did not have a full, accurate picture of what was actually going on. And so, as a result, Manitobans went into the election under the impression that everything was status quo and that there was nothing to be concerned about when it came to, you know, that year's overall fiscal direction. And I can't say that I don't sympathize with the opposition, that it must have been pretty concerning for them to see the overall direction of that year's, you know, fiscal result as they were leading up to that Q1 report out to Manitobans. But I don't think that that excuses what happened, which was that they still went forward with what ended up being like a full misrepresentation of the actual financial position of Manitoba. Why they did that, you know, I would assume it was with the goal of trying to ensure that Manitobans felt that as though their financial management and their budgeting was accurate and that they had done the work. And they didn't want to create an impression or let Manitobans know or let on that they had not done a good job managing the books as they went into the election. But unfortunately, that resulted in Manitobans getting a nasty surprise once our government was able to come in, open the books, understand the reality of the situation that they'd left for us. So, you know, that I think is, again, something we need to continue to remind Manitobans of that deep hole that we were left. Proud of the work we're doing in making progress in reducing that deficit. We've reduced it by a third with our first fiscal year result. That's going to be, of course, confirmed post-public accounts, but it's looking like it's going to be a full third reduction. And further work has been done, of course, with the release of our last budget, where we're showing more progress in reducing the size of that deficit. So again, happy to have shared the information with the critic about the number of audits, but of course also happy to have spoken a little bit to, I think, a very important audited financial result that impacted all Manitobans there in 23-24.
Just before recognizing the next member, I'd just like to take a moment to remind all honorable members to provide the courtesy of attention to the member who has the floor. It is acceptable to carry on conversations at the committee table as long as they don't disrupt proceedings. So, thank you. The honorable member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. And the minister and I can go around and around regarding his junk math, because the reality is that the former government left the NDP with a $373 million surplus, which was included in the audited public accounts. What he fails to recognize is that he was in government for 6 months and that they introduced and passed a $700 million special warrant that bumped up those deficit numbers. He was in government for those 6 months. They took a $373 million surplus and turned it into a deficit. That is the numbers that we are speaking to today, and I will continuously correct the record of the minister that he brings forward the Myers-Norris Penny report that said and specifically stated that there were limitations in the information that was provided to them to make that analysis. So I want to go back to deficit and debt and just refer the minister to page 119 of the budget documents under borrowing and debt management strategy. As I've mentioned numerous times, Manitoba does continue to be one of the more indebted provinces in the country. And based on the chart in the budget documents, we do have some debt that does not mature until, I believe it's 21, at which point none of us will be alive, unlikely will be alive unless some medical marvel happens. And saddling our grandchildren and future grandchildren with that debt. So if the minister could please tell us how many bonds matured in the 2024 fiscal year, and if the minister has signed any new long-term bonds ranging in kind of the 50 to 100 year mark, and if so, how many, at what additional debt, and at what average interest rate?
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Appreciate the question, and I do think it's important to make sure that when we're here in committee that we set the record straight and we speak honestly about what's happened. The critic has referenced what she called junk math. I would say that risks offending MNP and the workers and the incredibly important services that they provide. And I do think it disrespects the fact that they're an independent accounting firm doing important work. And I'll share with the critic, she references limitations. And I can share that the only limitation we faced was that we could not release cabinet records of the former government. So that is a long-standing tradition in our legislature and in Canadian legislatures, pillar of our system. But with that said, I want to share with the member that if she's wanting to call on her teammates and her leader to suggest that they release the Treasury Board records during their tenure, God, would that ever be welcome? And I would love to see the details of the decisions that were made. So if that's the concern that she has with MNP's analysis, we're open to it. And in fact, I would encourage her strongly to share with her leader that she would like to see those records released so that we could do an even deeper dive into some of the decisions. And I know that one decision in particular that Manitobans would love to see the details of at Treasury Board was when they decided to give a $500,000 check to the individual who's now leading their party. I'd love to see the deliberations that went into that and how they decided that he deserved a $500,000 check at a time when I remember a lot of other businesses were wondering, why they weren't getting a $500,000 check. And we're probably wondering, what it was about the now Leader of the Opposition's relationship with the Premier Stephenson at the time that gave him such an asymmetric and disproportionately large check relative to all of the other business supports that went out at that time. So that would be another really valuable, TB minute that I think if the critic wants to share, that would be great to offer that transparency. So, we brought in MNP not just to help us understand how we got to a $2 billion budget disaster that the former government left with us, but we did it because we wanted to actually understand lessons learned about how governments can avoid that type of decision-making and ultimately fiscal planning that led to the financial hardship that they left us with. And we've taken those lessons. And those are lessons that we genuinely wanted to benefit from. And I think Manitobans, credit rating agencies, investors can see that we've benefited from those lessons to make sure we don't repeat the mistakes that they made. And that's reflected now in our multi-year approach to planning and all the incredible work that our team has done to ensure that we deliver on that balanced budget commitment. The critic did ask about our borrowing strategy, so I'm happy to speak to that. I'll speak just high level. We are focused right now on 10 to 30 year market, mostly within the domestic market. But we're not just focused domestically when it comes to our bond strategy. We're also looking to diversify. We've got what are called kangaroo bonds. We're doing business with the Australian market. We've also got some Swiss, some purchases there. So we're seeing some good diversification, again, all with a focus on helping us to shave basis points from our costs. We know how important that is because the lower we can, the further we can go in lowering our borrowing costs, of course, the more we can do to invest in healthcare and investing in improving affordability. And again, I just want to say, I think the work that's being done is exceptional. We've got an amazing team in Treasury, led by our ADM, Nicoletta Opera, who I think is just an outstanding leader in the civil service, who, everywhere we went on those bond tours was treated like a rock star. We would walk into rooms and everybody knows Nicoletta, thanks to the great relationships she's building. And again, the result of that is that we will have lower borrowing costs that will serve Manitobans and ensure we can do more of the important investments we're making in healthcare improving affordability and making Manitoba into a safer place to live.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you, and I thank the minister for clarifying what some of those long-term bonds are in kind of the 20 to 30-year domestic market, as well as where else they're looking and exploring. I did notice on that same page I spoke to, 119 of the budget documents, that the debt maturity profile excludes short-term debt. So wondering if the minister can walk me through the province's short-term issuances, how many are maturing in this upcoming or this fiscal year of 2025, 2026, and what that debt is that's maturing in those short-term issuances as well.
The honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so in terms of the short-term debt question, the value of the T-bills we have outstanding is 2.6 billion. So those are 91-day terms, and we just roll them over. And then just to give a more fulsome picture, right now, cash on hand as of the end of March, total 4.168 billion.
The honourable member for Midland.
I thank the minister for answering that question directly with facts and figures. I want to switch to income tax questions for this minister. And in the past, Manitoba Tax Assistance Line has been used to assist Manitobans or answer questions regarding income taxes, such as the Manitoba school taxes or tax rebates. However, I've now heard from constituents that that service is now gone and they're directing individuals directly to CRA and not helping Manitobans with those questions. So can the minister please explain the rationale for why that service has now been stopped when Manitobans are just trying to pay their correct taxes or get their correct rebates? I understand that individuals have used this phone line and this service last year and it was in place. However, when they went to go use it this year, they were told that those individuals in the Manitoba Tax Department no longer provide that service to them.
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair. So to the critic's question, my understanding from our team, the departmental team, is that CRA directed that we no longer provide specific advice on personal income taxes because the CRA is responsible for administering and interpreting our Income Tax Act, and they want to ensure consistent responses. However, they still do answer questions about rebates and school tax credits. So they're still providing those supports, but the CRA advised that we needed to stop because they wanted to ensure consistency of responses there. So again, still providing Manitobans with supports on those other areas of taxation, but when it comes to personal income taxes, the CRA is providing those supports directly, and my understanding is that's consistent with other provinces as well. But just talking about taxes, reminds me of one tax that I really haven't had much of a chance to talk about here in this committee, but it's the great work that we've done to reduce costs for businesses through our reduction of the payroll tax. That is very exciting, especially right now. We know businesses are needing that little bit of additional support. And I just want to flag for the critic, if she hadn't read this part of the budget, that the threshold is now going to be raised from 2.25 million to 2.5 million to get to that notch rate. And then the threshold below which businesses pay a reduced effective rate is raised from 4.5 to 5 million. So we know there's almost 900 employers that are going to benefit from that, and that there's many, many employers that are going to be exempted completely from the payroll tax as a result of those changes. And we know that those supports to our small and medium businesses couldn't come at a better time, and proud to be doing that work in support of businesses. With that, I'll pass it back to the critic.
The Honorable Member for Midland.
Okay, thank the minister, and I'm sure those businesses would have appreciated being bumped into that other threshold a year ago had the minister followed the plan of the PCs of removing the payroll taxes and starting that process. But instead, now Manitoba businesses are going to have to wait until January 1st, when they could have already been exempt from paying that payroll tax a year ago, and had those savings directly right now during a time when businesses are struggling with US and China tariffs and other high costs that are coming at them. But instead, the minister decided to hold off on moving forward with that plan a year ago, and now those businesses are going to have to wait until January 1st. So they will not see those savings right now. They are not currently seeing those savings right now. They have to wait as this minister delayed that movement. I also want to make reference to the income tax increases that this minister has decided to place on many Manitobans at a time of a cost of living crisis and possible economic recession that economists are currently predicting, as the minister has decided to stop indexing tax brackets to inflation, otherwise known as bracket creep. As we know, when inflation increases, any wage increases will not be seen by Manitobans, who will end up being pushed into a higher tax bracket as a result of this poor decision that the minister has made. The minister is expecting in his budget documents to generate around $82 million from this increase of income taxes on hardworking Manitobans. So since the minister made this change, if he could please provide the number of Manitobans that this will impact. Essentially what I'm asking is how many Manitobans the minister projects will be pushed into a higher tax bracket to generate that $82 million. Are we looking at 100 Manitobans? Are we looking at 10,000 Manitobans? What does that number look like if he did his homework?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. I appreciate that and appreciate the question from the critic. Again, as I've said here, it is very important that we correct the record and that we speak honestly about what's happening here in our province. I just want to speak specifically to a comment that was made about the payroll tax, which we were proud to bring in that reduction to help save businesses money. When the critic references that this is something that their government had done, again, it's important to remind their team that that, like many things that they had said, was just an act of fiction, because they had no role in any kind in actually implementing that. Just as they said they had a plan to build 9 schools, but there was no budget for that. Just as they said they built a gold mine, which was again never going to happen without our NDP government doing the work that we did. There was no payroll tax reduction there that Manitobans were going to benefit from until our government came in and actually made it happen. So very important that we again correct the record as it relates to that payroll tax comment. And again, just as with schools, the gold mine, so many other things the Conservatives like to try to take credit for, it was all just an act of their imagination. And we know that, of course, the MNP report spoke to that, spoke to how we got there, and it spoke to many of the bad decisions that we saw from them that left us in a very challenging place. But our government is rectifying that and is starting to move us forward on a good path. When we talk about tax increases here in Manitoba and the biggest existential threat that we're facing, it's of course the Trump tariff tax. The 25% tariff tax threat that has Manitoba industries, businesses, communities really worried about the future. And again, Manitobans are confused as to why the Leader of the Opposition supports those tariffs that we're being threatened with. And I guess what I would like to know from the critic and the critic's leader is which industries is he okay with us losing? Which sectors of our economy does he support creating significant economic scarring within? Why does he feel that we should be saying anything positive about that threat to Manitoban businesses? So, this is the economic threat of the moment. This is the real tax concern that when you speak with businesses, that's what they're most worried about. And again, we have a Leader of the Opposition who seems to speak in favor of those taxes that are being applied to Manitoba businesses. We know those risks are real, and I know many of my colleagues have been working really hard to speak directly with businesses and to understand the shape and contours of those risks that have been created by Trump's tariffs. And I think about some of what I learned when I visited some of our local businesses. And I'm thinking about, one very powerful visit that I was fortunate enough to make with our Premier when we visited Gerdau Steel. And we spoke with the leaders of that company. We spoke with workers for Gerdau, and we heard about their worry about the threat that tax threat, the Trump tariff tax threat presents to them and their jobs. I was also really fortunate to tour 2 incredible businesses in Winkler recently, Triple E recreational vehicles. Ryan Elias, the CEO there, gave me a tour of the incredible facility that they're operating, where they're making a world-class product, but of course are worried about the impacts of tariffs on their business. I also was fortunate to visit Decor Cabinets, who are again operating a world-class facility doing really unbelievable work. I was again fortunate to meet with Stan, the CEO there, to learn about the work that they're doing to continue to invest in automation, improving productivity there. But once again, significant risks being presented to their business due to those Trump tariffs that the Leader of the Opposition and their team seems to be supporting, or at least if you look at the comments made by the Leader of the Opposition, it would appear they're supporting. So that is the significant tax threat that is facing Manitobans right now. We're doing the important work of working to support our businesses so we can help them through this challenging time. And That's what Manitobans can count on us to continue doing.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. This question was a pretty direct question about income taxes and the number of Manitobans that this minister is putting into a higher tax bracket in order to generate the $82 million within this year's budget documents. He's clearly trying to distract Manitobans from his tax increases. He's having a bad couple weeks because property tax bills have hit the doors, and he's probably very embarrassed that he has now made 132,200 property owners within the city of Winnipeg worse off as a result of his bad planning with the general assessment and the double-digit school tax increases that have occurred this year. So I'm going to ask the minister another very clear question, and this is an answer that Manitobans deserve to hear. Can the minister provide a breakdown of the number of Manitobans in 2024 that were in the 10.8% tax rate bracket with incomes between $0 and $47,000? Can he provide the number of Manitobans in the 12.75% tax rate with incomes between $47,001 to $100,000? And can he provide the number of Manitobans in the 17.4% tax rate with incomes over $100,000 from 2024?
I was just wondering.
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair, and grateful for an opportunity to talk about the important work we're doing to lower costs for Manitobans. One thing that we did right out of the gate, and I remember being pushed by CRA to get clarity on, was how we were going to approach brackets and bracket changes. And we were, of course, focused on lowering costs for Manitobans, and we committed to making changes to the brackets that help to reduce personal income tax burden for Manitobans. That was in addition to the basic personal exemption lift that we brought in. That brought an enormous reduction in personal income taxes for Manitobans. Saved them, in many cases, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And we know how important that is. And that, I think, was something that we demonstrated, again, right out of the gate, that ours was a government that was going to reduce costs for Manitobans. So in addition to those commitments where we helped to reduce that scope of that personal income tax burden for Manitobans, we, of course, did other things, took other measures shortly after coming in. For example, our fuel tax holiday, which we brought in, I think, within 2 or 3 months of coming into government, where, again, we made a change that, for Manitobans meant hundreds and hundreds of dollars of additional savings. Savings that they were not able to obtain under the former government, because the former government seemed to really love to keep gas taxes as high as possible. For 7.5 years, they charged the maximum they could. Again, and this is, these are significant costs. Fuel taxes are a form of, or fuel costs rather, represent a big portion of the average household's, yearly budget. And under the former government, they kept those costs as high as possible. What we did was we slashed them to zero, and we did that in very short order after coming in. So those were some of the immediate measures we took. And again, to questions about our approaches to brackets, as raised by the critic, that's what we did. We made changes. This government was responsible for an enormous personal income tax cut because that was our focus, and we know that that's why Manitobans sent us to the legislature. So we did bring in a budget that brought in those savings for Manitobans. But, of course, we had other areas of focus, commitments that we'd made, whether it was fixing healthcare that had been slashed and cut for many years under the members opposite, or it was, focusing on growing the economy. We had a lot of areas of focus, but one of the top focuses, and it shouldn't surprise the critic, was improving affordability. And I'm delighted that, in our first budget, we brought in 21 ways to save that helped to deliver that. That was, I think, the right focus. And our last budget continued to build on that. And I'm happy to share just a few of my favorites here. I talked about our personal income tax cuts. I've talked about our gas tax cut, but I haven't had a chance to talk about our hydro rate freeze. That's another really important measure we took. We know that the last government was almost obsessed with finding ways to increase hydro rates on Manitobans, whether it was through legislation, like, for example, the year that they brought in a hydro rate increase in Bitsabille, the first time in our province's history that Manitobans had ever had a hydro rate increase imposed upon them that didn't have the benefit of going through a regulatory body through the pub. That meant that increase was an increase that Manitobans will never know if it was actually needed. We saw them continue to try to focus on using that type of approach where they sought to do a runaround from the pub with their Bill 36. And I think it was the final iteration, after having gone 3 years of them trying to push that through, the final iteration, Bill 36, essentially sought to do away with the role of the Public Utilities Board, all with the goal and allowing them to raise hydro rates as quickly as possible. So fortunately, our government put an end to that. We made those amendments that did away with that approach, and we stopped the 5% increase that would have gone live April 1st. And that, again, was a major sort of initiative that we undertook to lower energy costs for Manitobans in addition to that permanent gas tax cut. So just a handful of my favorites there, some of the highlights from our affordability highlights reel. And, lots more to say when it comes to affordability and the important work we're doing to reduce taxes for Manitobans. And happy to return to that in a following answer if the critic wants me to keep highlighting our fantastic record in reducing costs for Manitobans.
The honourable member from Midland.
Quite frankly, the minister doesn't have much of a leg to stand on when it comes to hydro rates because he's jacked them up 11% over the next 3 years. But I do want to come back to another topic as we've seen education property taxes skyrocket over the past couple weeks, and Winnipeggers and Manitobans are currently in shock as they're seeing their property tax bills come through their mailboxes. But the minister in the past has often been fond of talking about the reduction of the education property tax credit for renters, but fails to acknowledge that the former Minister of Finance, Scott Fielding, created a new renters tax credit of $525 to replace it. The minister then promised to increase it after the election to $750, but has since been making renters wait, and it's only seen a increase by a small amount. So why in 2021 and 2022 and 2023 did the minister say it should be $750, but now as minister, he's been breaking that promise and his word and only delivering half measures. In 2024, it was left at $525. In 2025, it was only $575, with this budget promising that would go to $625 in 2026. So why has the minister failed to deliver on his promise of increasing it to $750 when year over year over year he said that he would do this, and I wanted to see that happen? So I think those renters may have voted because of this minister's promise, and might feel very betrayed after the minister spoke for 3 years about increasing it to $750 and has failed to increase it to that amount. So why should renters trust this minister and his word?
The honourable Minister of Finance.
Because we're doing what we said we would do. And that's just proven out in the record. So, I mean, I'm delighted to have a chance to speak to this work that we're doing to make life more affordable for renters. We know that when it comes to costs for renters, the last government increased their burden by $175. So, I mean, it's kind of a strange thing to lean into here, I would say, because this is an area where we have a clear-cut example of the PCs raising costs on folks who need the most help. Renters tend to be folks on fixed incomes, seniors, folks struggling with various disabilities. Our renters tend to be made up with folks who are facing some financial challenges. Not in all cases, but in many cases. And so their decision to raise taxes on renters by $175 was very concerning. To the critic's point, we did indeed commit to raising that back up to where it was before the PCs slashed that credit and ultimately increased the burden for folks who needed those supports. And I'm proud to say we're doing the work. We're doing what we said we were going to do, and we're committed to getting that back to what it was before the Conservatives cut it. And both of our budgets have made progress in delivering on that commitment, and the critic can expect more progress on that in future budgets as well. And that's because our team and our government is focused on ensuring that hardworking, everyday Manitobans are seen and that their challenges are recognized. And I think there's no question that we've proven that we're committed to supporting them, and both of our recent budgets, again, have shown progress in helping those folks who need the help. I have to say, in terms of the hydro rate comment by the critic, it does give me an opportunity to speak to the important work we're doing to, again, keep hydro rates affordable while we actually move hydro forward. One of the things that was most concerning about the former government's record is that not only did they develop no new energy to support Manitobans or supporting economic growth, but that they had this program of increases in hydro rates, which, by the way, is in excess of our proposed rate increase path that's gone from hydro to the Public Utilities Board. But they did that. They raised hydro rates, again, in excess of what we're proposing during a period where they were doing absolutely nothing to move hydro forward. No program of building, no vision for moving hydro ahead, no proposal for developing new energy. So while we were sitting on our hands, while the former government was sitting on their hands when it came to energy and hydro, they were doing that while they were increasing rates. So you have a very clear distinction if you compare their record. Big hydro rate increases, doing absolutely nothing. Our approach is reasonable hydro rate increases, which are still lower than what they brought forward, while we get the job done. That's a pretty clear contrast when you look at, again, no accomplishments, big hydro rate increases, moderate fare increases that keep rates low while we do what needs to be done in building out new hydro. It's a remarkable contrast. And you look at what we're proposing and what we've outlined in our affordable energy plan, 600 megawatts of new wind in partnership with First Nations for the first time in this province's history. Doing that work in the right way, in a good way, in collaboration with First Nations, that is an exciting path forward. We've committed to, of course, a lot of other really important changes that is going to start to take full advantage of what we have here in our province, which is this remarkable endowment with 4 watersheds that run through our province. And our team is making the most of that. And we're, again, as we are in so many other areas, whether it's healthcare, justice, infrastructure, almost every single area of government, we're making progress, and hydro is no exception. And again, if you compare what happened under their tenure, boy, oh boy, did they ever put us in a tough position. We have, because of their lack of action, needed to move at a very fast clip to start developing new capacity. Hydro's moving forward in the right way to make sure that we advance and make progress on that commitment to 600 megawatts of new wind energy. Proud of the work that they're doing, proud of our team and the fact that we're keeping rates affordable while we do it. And again, that's what Manitobans can expect from us. More progress, focus on affordability while we get the job done.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. As we know, many Winnipeggers, 132,200 properties within the city of Winnipeg, that's 55% of properties in Winnipeg that are receiving property tax bills, are worse off under this NDP government. We are hearing from homeowners and property owners across the entire city that are being hit with significantly high property tax bills as a direct result of the decision that this minister made to get rid of the 50% education property tax rebate and replace it with a poorly thought out $1,500 homeowner affordability credit. And what we're seeing is those homeowners are now in for property bill shock, and they are seeing that as we speak, as those property tax bills went in the mail last Thursday and have been hitting mailboxes as we speak. In fact, in the minister's own constituency, St. James Assiniboia has increased school division taxes by 10.4%. In the Winnipeg School Division, we're seeing a 13.7% increase. In Pembina Trails, a 16.6% increase. In Seven Oaks, a 16.8% increase. In St. River, a 14.4% increase. In Interlake, 17.9% increase. In Louis Riel, 18.4% increase. And River East Transcona, 14.4% increase. Those are double-digit school division increases in taxes across every single Winnipeg school division. This is analysis, public analysis done by the City of Winnipeg. So seeing as how Manitobans and Winnipeggers' property tax bills have skyrocketed under this NDP government, and we are seeing historic double-digit increases by school divisions across the City of Winnipeg, does this minister maintain that his decision to remove the 2% cap on school divisions is a good one?
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Yeah, happy to just use the last 40 seconds here to talk a bit more about the important work that we're doing to make life more affordable. I flagged this for the critic many times, but I'm happy to repeat the $1,600 tax credit that we committed to will make it more affordable to own a home for nearly 80% of Manitobans, according to the Department of Finance. And so, building on that, just happy to share for her benefit. What we know is 90% of homeowners in Dauphin, Selkirk, Gimli will pay less taxes thanks to the tax credit. Nearly 90% of homeowners in Winkler will pay less taxes thanks to this credit, and on and on and on. That's work we're proud to do and work we're going to continue to do as the government's focused on affordability.
The hour being 5 o'clock, committee rise.